We are going to have Casie and Zhym come up next. And we're going to go back to double warrior band Sottle. And we are going to dive into Quest Warlock as well as Zhym is playing.
Zhym is indeed, yeah. Quest Warlock is a little bit thin on the ground today compared to what we've been seeing. We're not actually the most popular region for it. I'm used to, when an innovation comes into the metagame, it's normally Europe where we see the most of it, APAC the least, and America's in the middle. I generally characterize it like that, but actually America's has the vast majority of the Quest Warlocks in GM this week. I believe 12, maybe 14, can't remember the exact number of the America's GMs that brought Quest Warlock this week, whereas we have significantly less than that. But Zhym does seem to show a tendency for these kind of elaborate combo decks in his lineup. He relied on OTK Demon Hunter for longer than anyone else did once the nerf started coming in, and now here he is on his Quest Warlock, which has certainly seen some questionable play from multiple people. It's certainly seen a questionable win rate across the board in GM, and now Zhym basically has a head-to-head playoff now with Casie for who is going to find their way into that final playoff spot or playoffs play-in spot, depending on how you want to characterize it. One of these players will face the relegation bracket. One of them will finish in the top 4 of Division B.
Yeah, so yet again, shock horror, guys. It's another must-win match for the players involved. It's a theme throughout the day, as you may have noticed. But I will say, for Casey's lineup, I think this might be the lineup as well as the actual deck building itself. I like the most this weekend. I like the Highlander Hunter. I think his build of Highlander Hunter is good. And then the Demon Hunter Warrior tick those boxes. And then this Quest Adventurer Rogue. This just looks like, for me, the lineup, especially if you don't want to risk it on the Quest Warlock. But yeah, for me, I think Casey's just nailed it this weekend.
And there you see the lineup that Raven thinks is nailing it so comfortably, and you can see why just from that bottom right card. That alone will give you 10 out of 10 rating from Raven, as long as you put that Grand Slam in your Highlander Hunter. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the secret build is very nice. It's clearly a build that Casie is very proud of, very happy with, very comfortable with, because he's been tweeting a whole bunch about it, retweeting everyone else's successes with the build of the deck as well. Whereas from Zhym's side, we can see a few more questionable decks. I am certainly Team Quest Warlock, but the stats don't often lie, and it has been receiving quite a beating this week. I am certainly not Team Spell Druid. I think that deck just kind of sucks in the current metagame.
Yep, Sol also proving that he has all the dust in the world as Druid, by far the cheapest on that screen. Compared to the Demon Hunter and especially the Quest Warlock. At least it's not Highlander Mage. But yeah, I again, this is also just part of the point of me talking about Casey's lineup looked super strong, because to me, there are no questionable decks. There are no, I'm not sure about that. The builds are good, the decks are good, the archetypes are good. Whereas for Zhym, again, Quest Warlock not really doing it. And I don't think I'll ever decide about Druid, because, again, half the pros I look at on Twitter are saying it's trash, but pros from every region of Grandmasters keep submitting it. So it's one of those things, I just don't know who to believe at this point. I've played it, and my description of the deck from my experience and from what we've seen is you either just like Omega win, or you just get dumpstered. And maybe that's just the way people want to play. You take a deck that just has a chance that if you do get the strong hands, you can just destroy everyone. But the second you whiff on only a few of those threats that are actually in the deck, the Glowfly, the Mount Seller, the Ysera, if you just whiff on any of those, well, your deck does nothing, because you hold the rest of your other cards are built around those 3 threats. So it's going to be exciting to see how it continues to perform or not as we go into this series. But overall, I think Casey's put himself in a good spot.
Yeah, I managed to start an argument last night about Druid, as I tweeted that I thought Spell Druid was a skip. RDU then told me that it was better than Warlock, and then a bunch of America's GMs came in and said that was nonsense. Warlock was great and Druid sucked. Then Brian Kibler just came in and dunked on everyone and rode Shiro off into the night sky at the end of it all, and I think that was pretty much the end of it.
Why did he go in and say, actually, Libram Paladin's the best, and I won't have anything else said? I didn't see it, actually. I didn't
genuinely see it. One of Brian Kibler's best tweets ever. It's actually great.
Okay.
You should check it out.
I'll catch up on it on the break. I won't do it now, but on the break I'll read it. But yeah, for now, as I was just saying, I think Casie is just in a strong spot, very similar to just the previous match, where to me, just looking at lineups, when your GM life is on the line, if you just have what appears to be a stronger lineup than your opponent, you are just more favored in my book. I'll keep it simple, and this is what I think this story says here for Casie and Zhym. And I do think Casie's very much been on the upward trend of performance recently, whereas Zhym maybe not so much. And I do think there is a certain level of, well, if you keep losing a lot, you are going to feel worse and maybe play worse. But if, as Casie is now, is on that upward sort of spiral, which means he has been improving and performing better over time, then he's still flying high on that. Okay, I've recovered, and if I can win this match from what looked like a dire start to the season, he is safe.
Yeah, my only question mark is Casey's mentality based on yesterday. Because, of course, Casie went through the ringer yesterday. He actually had Viper playing a match essentially on his behalf, the match that could make him safe without him even needing to play today. Viper lost that match in shocking circumstances, with the rope burning out and the cards not being played. And Casie was even tweeting at the time saying watching someone else play games that matter for you is so much worse than playing them yourself. So, the only thing I would worry about, from a mental position is, whether he's recovered from whatever he went through yesterday, obviously going through the ringer of emotions. But again, the mentality, of course, should be whether you chose to watch that matchup or not. I think you should just come in with the mentality of, no matter what happens here, my job is in my hands and I just have to beat Zhym tomorrow and then job done.
And for me, we've talked about it, but that's definitely the mental state these players have to be in. And just before we get into game number 1, I believe the players are diving in right now. Okay, they're actually already in. Never mind. I take it all back. I'll save that talking point for a little bit later.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be it's an interesting one, but it's going to be a Demon Hunter mirror for now. So forgo what I was going to say. Let's get into this one. It seems fairly even so far with a Battle Fiend apiece.
I also wonder, I have a suspicion that Zhym might be exactly the kind of player that can get sucked into playing Casie speed.
I can see that.
I just feel like one or two players have just been a little bit guilty of just falling into Casey's natural pace and just being sped up throughout the game.
Now, though, Casie has one of those Demon Hunter hands that is just gonna... It's always a double-edged sword, I feel, because it's a hand that isn't hyper-aggressive right now, but it's got all of your best cards in it. So can you be that upset? You know what I mean? Like, you've got a Warglaves on curve, maybe early with the coin if he wants it. The Skull of Gul'dan is in the far left, which means as and when it is live for its full powerful effect. So although this is a bit of a struggle for the early game for Casie, once that mid game kicks in, maybe it's just so overwhelmingly powerful that he's still going to be happy with it.
And I don't want to say I told you so, Raven, but I told you so already. That card just came onto the board before we even saw it in Zhym's hand, and he's played every turn at that speed so far. I like already now that he's just slowing down, considering where he wants these attacks to go. Is the value trade relevant?
And, I'll put it out there right now. I'm okay with you telling me I told you so if it's not something I was even arguing against you with. Yeah, so you can tell me I told you so all you want. That's absolutely fine on my end.
No one is on the other side of this issue.
Oh, yeah. So coin into Warglaves, one obviously uses up the coin, but it does just clean up this Kane pretty efficiently. And then there's Kane with Sidekick next turn for Casie. Do you think that's a good way round to do it?
I can see it, but I think it's just a Warglaves turn. Yeah.
Wait, that's what I said.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said the other way around. Okay.
No. Coin into Warglaves to clear up the Kane, then there's Kane into Sidekick the turn after, which bridges the gap for the skull. Yes,
yeah,
okay.
For sure. This is the way I like it, yeah.
I told you so.
Jeez, I told you so.
On the other hand, though, Zhym's cards do not line up quite as well as Casie's do for the mid-game. If he plays this Metamorphosis, for one, he kind of does need to get it out the way for the Skull of Gul'dan to be playable, unless he wants to go the other way and maybe just empty the right side. But that's so hard to do in the near future. So if he does play Metamorphosis now, though, it's just meta and pass. But there's not much else that looks even remotely good enough. At least this kind of plays around the Warglaives. Just don't play a minion to trade into.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's an outside world where you make a 4/4 Altruist just to have something in play, and just, you know, it pushes a bunch of damage to your opponent's face if they have to smash Warglaives into it, but that's pretty ridiculous, all things considered.
And the problem is, it only really pushes 4 because they can just hero power, right?
Exactly.
Which is the big problem.
Yeah.
If it was against a non-weapon turn, then yeah, maybe in some worlds it gets there, but now this Kane's 7 health is a lot against Demon Hunter.
It is. And with the hand that Zhym has, it doesn't look like he has the right to go face here. Can put Casie to 11. Oh, maybe he actually does. I'm forgetting that there's still 2 charges of this hero power left, right? So used to it being used immediately on the turn it's played. So he has 10 from this, 3 from the Warglaives, and then Altruist for lethal on the following turn with 3 more from the Warglaives. Yeah.
What if he...
I think he just goes face.
What if he... Well, if he's going to set up next turn, then is it ever worth to just... Oh, I guess he wants the second slice for the Altruist. Yep. I was wondering whether you go second slice, 2 swings into the Kane, 1 swing into the face for 4, and then he still has another swing the turn after.
Alas, poor warlock.
Oh, it's okay. In case he would have really minded an I-beam there.
We're with you.
So now, unless this card on the right is like Skull of Gul'dan or something ridiculous, nah, he's chilling.
He can only do 2 AoE, and that means he doesn't get to hero power if that's the case. If the Frozen Shadow Weaver was a 2-drop or less, this turn would look significantly better.
I grow impatient.
Oh, this is only a second slice as well.
Right. That's what I mean. He can only actually do 2 Altruist Blades.
Oh, that's disgusting! I thought it had to be a way worse draw than a Frozen Shadow Weaver to mess with him. But no, there was actually a significant amount of draws that did give him problems.
It needs it to be 2 or less, right? So we could actually play them and still use the hero power.
Right.
Because if it was just a 2-drop, he could hero power the Kane, and then Altruist go, and that's enough to get there. Whereas it's just not now because he can't hero. Sorry, I punched my mic. He can't hero power as well.
Is it cold in the shadows?
Disaster.
Oof. So he's just gonna hope he doesn't die and say, okay, well, Altruist has to be better the turn after.
He's just dead to Gladebound though.
Yeah. Get ready for the fist bumps from Casie.
No, business mode for Casie.
Yeah, fair enough.
He knows there's a long way to go. This is just a Demon Hunter mirror. Both players' safety still very much on the line here. And yes, you can see it's bothering Zhym. That was an unfortunate turn of events with, what, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cards still remaining that cost 2 or less at that point. Actually, more than that, I didn't count the I-beams because they would also cost 2 or less at that point.
Yep, they would.
To be able to get through. So even more outs, and still he hit one of the most expensive cards in his deck to be able to block it. But yeah, actually readjusting because I wasn't looking at those last 2 turns correctly. I was thinking Zhym's lethal outs were far more secure than they were when I was like, yeah, okay, he just goes face. This looks great. Maybe, tiny outside chance maybe he had to consider that his lethal wasn't as secure as he thought it was either. But again, when you break down those odds and it's 14, 15 outs in your deck that give you lethal on the following turn, pretty solid. I think the way he played it is pretty fine.
It's also tough as well because one of the different routes he could have taken was trading through that Kane and still pushing damage to face. He still kind of set up the same thing, but obviously he takes more damage at that point, and he drew Shadow Weaver to freeze the Kane anyway, so it wouldn't have made too much of a difference just because of the mana cost of the turn and what was available there. So unfortunately there for Zhym, but Casie does take the first win of this series and the much needed win that is. We are going to go to a quick break while we set up our game number 2 between Casie and Zhym, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You know, if you could give me something from the answers, that would really help me out, you know?
Oh. Whenever you're ready.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Sotul, joined by Kolento. I'm sure this is going to be an incredibly insightful interview. Got tons of just incredible questions here provided to me by the production team. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of information out of my friend here. So Kolento, what is your happiest Hearthstone memory?
Probably Y-Game House Cup, I guess.
Great, I'm presuming you won that?
Of course.
So just soldier on through. When did you start playing Hearthstone? Wonderful, really learning a lot right now. What's your favorite part about Hearthstone?
I like how I can be asked dumb questions when I'm being interviewed.
Yep, expected. Who is your favorite Hearthstone caster?
Probably not you.
Really? Like, do you really want me to... All right, we're gonna get through this. Who is your best friend in Hearthstone? Any positivity? Can you pick one that you do like?
No.
We are back and ready to continue our series between Casie and Zhym. Casie taking a quick win there in that Demon Hunter matchup. Looking pretty close, but still it's a must-need win there. He has Hunter and Rogue left over against Zhym's whole lineup. But with all the questions we've had over Quest, Warlock and Druid this week, maybe now is not the time for Zhym's life to be on the line with 2 out of the 3 being decks there. It's pretty scary, I think, if I was Zhym right now.
It is, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, but a lot of the time when you're playing Druid, you would feel like you have a pretty good matchup going into the Rogue. But again, this ability for questing adventurers to just come down early in the Rogue and just scam you out of the game does improve the matchup, I think, for the Rogue quite significantly, because they just can't be answered. If you can get them down early, turn 3, turn 4, if you're on coin and you get them down as a 4/4 initially, how does Druid deal with that? They're going to have to throw multiple spells at it, one of them being a Bog Beam that they pay for a lot of the time. So yeah, I think even then, the Druid for Zhym might be even worse positioned in this series than we've seen it in some others.
Yeah, and funnily enough, even in the worlds where those spells are available and played to kill a questing, well then, Glowfly is way worse, if not ignorable at that point, right? Which means Glowfly is one of the cards that Rogue struggles the most against Druid, because it's the early point in which it comes down versus Rogue not really having a strong board by that point in the game. That's one of the problems. So even if a Questing soaks up some cards early on, and we do see there's a Questing and a Shadow Step there, it does mean that it can be a huge problem. But this is going to be against Demon Hunter, of course, so a slightly different matchup, but still doesn't remove the fact that Quest Adventure with a backstab and potential Shadow Step is extremely powerful.
Yeah, this hand is looking pretty absurd for Casie from this matchup. He has the Ferrocat on the play, he's following that up with a backstab, and then he has one of the best reborn minions you can pull, really, when you're looking to clear boards early on. And then factor in Questing Adventurer Shadow Step alongside that.
Yeah, it's looking pretty strong here for Casie. How do you feel about this matchup in general? I know we talked about the Questings, of course, but do you still think Zhym's or Demon Hunter on average does win this?
I don't actually. I'm not as convinced. I've really ridden the roller coaster on this matchup throughout Grandmasters. Yeah. I started off saying it was Rogue favored ever so slightly. Then when I saw the full impact of what Beaming Sidekicks did in the matchup, I was like, yeah, okay, fine. You know, you guys were right. It's Demon Hunter favored. That's fine. But now with the Questing Adventurers coming in, I think, potentially that ability to create a huge board swing early on. I don't know whether this is the matchup for it. There's certain hands like the one we're looking at where it can certainly have a huge impact. But I think in general against Demon Hunter, maybe the card is just a little bit slow and clunky to be having a big impact.
Okay.
But it certainly looks like it's going to be pretty game winning right now.
Especially the fact that the poison from the ambush just clears up the buff on the Battlemaster means that there's just nothing to fight back with here for Zhym. Vulpera into Consume Magic.
Okay, I'm interested.
Even to a certain extent, Mana Burn does a certain level of work against Questing. Twin Slice helps.
Nothing?
Well, he can Twin Slice into Gladebound next turn.
He can. That's assuming there aren't just, a bunch of other minions that he also has to deal with. It answers one problem. It's the biggest problem, certainly.
Yep. And honestly, I think with Casey's turns, there are the reborn minions to consider, which is the problem. But are you really going to be seeing a lot more minions next turn? I think that's you're probably seeing one, honestly.
Yep. And even now, Zhym has to tank 5 more to kill this. And there's just another 6 being left on board after the Gladebound turn. And the hits are just going to keep on coming. Casie can just happily respond to this. He just poisons the 6/4 and just plays 2 more minions and goes face again.
I did actually wonder if last turn Zhym could have used a Twin Slice to kill off the ambush minion.
That's a great point, actually. Yeah, he probably should have done. Yeah, he absolutely should have done.
5 from and again, are you expecting much more from the Questing?
Right.
It's a fair, because if they played one extra card, the Questing's then too big to kill.
Yeah.
But the poison lives, which then just kills your Gladebound. So it's tough. It's tough. It's something he could have done, though.
Yeah, I will walk back my statement slightly. I don't think it's just a straight-up obvious thing to do, but I think probably your out is to do that and then just say, sorry, Casie, you can only play 1 card next turn. If you can play 2 cards, I'm dead. Good game.
Yeah, you've seen Ferrocat, you've seen Shadow Step, you've seen Backstab. Like how many more low-cost cards is he actually going to have, right?
Right. Zhym does find a creative line here to allow himself not to take the additional damage from the Questing, but in a weird way, he just does take the additional damage from the Questing because he got hit by it again on the following turn. But he does create, I guess, more of a swing on the board by not playing his Gladebound Adept into the Poisonous minion.
Right, that's it, right? To just play it and just die. Right. Could have actually just lost him, or put him in a worse spot in the long run.
Oh, Casie. Where have you been all my life? Why can't everyone play Hearthstone like this?
Yeah, a huge win for Game 2 there for Casie, going up 2-0 in mere minutes. But again, and yes, he had questing. Yes, he had the good support cards for it, of course. But questing is in the deck, right? Like, it's been put in by a lot of these players, and it's been highly rated by a top of the a lot of these rogue masters. And I would say Casie is one of the rogue specialists that we have right now. So. Even though it looked like it was just a blowout, oh, we got the best opening hand, he put the card in the deck to do that with, and it paid off for him. And now he only has Hunter left. And you know what I think about the Hunter-Warlock matchup. Never mind about the other two that they could play. A little bit harder, but still, the fact that Casie has 3 goes at this with, I think, a very solid Highlander-Hunter list just gives me the utmost confidence that Casie does have this versus Zhym.
Yeah, we'll wait and see, because I think these are 3 inherently winnable matchups. I don't think any of them are 65% plus favored for the deck for the Highlander Hunter. The Druid still has outs; they still have curves that no one can really beat, and Glowfly Swarm is an incredibly difficult card for Hunter to deal with if they don't draw Zephyrus. Demon Hunter, of course, I think Demon Hunter is favored in that matchup, generally agreed upon, and then Quest Warlock. You think it's much more unfavored than I do. I do agree that it's an unfavorable, but I think it's a slight unfavorable. For the Quest Warlock, I think the right combination of early Dark Skies plus timely healing can get you there very nicely. But yeah, of course, Casie, just by the pure factor of being 2-0 ahead in the series and only having 1 deck left to win with, is an enormous favourite. Even if he did have the massive 65% unfavourables, he would be favourite to win the series. So the fact that it's 3 slight favourables or 2 slight favourables and a slight unfavourable, he's still in a wonderful position to win this series and, most importantly, secure his safety.
Yeah, and I will say as well, just looking at Zhym's Quest Warlock specifically, he is running a Swamp Ooze in there, which is a big deal against Hunter, because you know as well as I do that the strength of Stormhammer in any matchup where just consistent damage is important, and yeah, so that is a huge deal, potentially game winning. So we'll see how and if that even gets played out today. But so far, you can take a look at Casie's Highlander Hunter list, and I said this, but I'll reiterate. Just a good list, honestly. There's a couple of cards that you could change and swap out, but I think overall, this is looking more and more likely to just be the good list and the go-to for the deck, with not really tons of tech cards, but even the Ooze in there himself means he's got some of the extra game versus Demon Hunter as well. So yeah, I think overall, just a very, very solid list from Casie, and all these secret shenanigans we see from some of the other players.
Yeah, I think, this, to me, if you're going to play Nagrand Slam, this is the list that you should be making. Because my concern with Nagrand Slam and Dragon Queen Alexstrasza in the deck is that you just have too many dead cards in your hand in the early and mid game that are unplayable. But the way this list is built, with extra cards coming in like Bone Chewer Brawler, it's 20 cards that cost 3 or less, and then just a few bombs at the end. So it kind of works the way you want it to, where you have a very smooth curve through the early and mid game, and then because you have 2 huge bombs in Dragon Queen Alexstrasza and Nagrand Slam, you don't find yourself running out of stuff to do because you hit one of those big bombs very consistently.
Yeah, that's it. I honestly just think the ratio of mana cost cards in Highlander Hunter and in this this kind of build specifically just feels so smooth, right? There aren't that many hard whiffs, and your mulligan is just so consistent because, as you mentioned, there's just so many low cost cards in the deck. But on the other side of the board, we are going to see Zhym on his Demon Hunter once again, and again this is a fairly standard build, just almost all the 2 orbs, the 1 Sightless Watcher in there because the way the legendaries work, of course, but nothing too crazy. Zhym not really venturing into the questions of whether actually Sigil Runner is good enough to actually make it in the deck, or whether Mana Burns have their spot in the list. Zhym just going for no, I'm just going to play the most consistent 2-of list here.
Yeah, seems accurate. We've seen some players going with particularly wacky cards like Blowtorch Saboteurs, for example, in their Demon Hunter, to really shut down some of the Demon Hunter mirrors, I guess. Denying that hero power is huge if they have to pay 3 for it, and a little auxiliary benefit maybe in the Warlock matchup. Just really even the fact that it's an extra 4 health minion in your deck more than anything else, which is actually pretty important against a lot of their AoE. But yeah, this is what I would call probably just the core list of Demon Hunter right now, with the 2 Vulpera Scoundrels, 1 Sightless Watcher. This is what we're seeing more often than not.
Yep, if you are either just getting into Demon Hunter or want to give it a try after watching, a list like that is what you want to look at. It's just starting from. You can make amends here and there based on what you're facing, but really, if you just want a good, solid, going to get the job done list, look at the one Zhym submitted for this week. But yeah, I'm excited to see this. I always want to watch more Demon Hunter, and that might sound a bit weird because on the other side it's Hunter, which I obviously love, but Demon Hunter just continues to intrigue me, and honestly, I can't wait till next expansion because it's the first expansion for Demon Hunter, if that makes sense. Because obviously, you could argue this is just its core base release. So I'm excited to see the evolution because it's already so strong. Are we going to see maybe some more late game cards come into it to really power out those big demons that Demon Hunter has access to? Or are we going to see maybe even more aggression? And some of these games are going to really start picking up speed if Demon Hunter continues to be a powerhouse in the meta.
Yeah, I mean, it's potentially huge. I think that is the way it probably will end up going, where it's a matter of pushing other archetypes of Demon Hunter as we move forward, because I don't think, after the class has been so consistently tuned down time after time after time, that you then give it another enormously powerful set of aggro cards, right? And just push it right
I'd love
back
it,
to where
honestly.
I'd
love it.
I mean, I would love it too. I think we've continuously meta after meta, we've had outright aggro being underpowered, and I think it was about time that we had a bit of aggro dominance, even if it was short-lived in the initial weeks of Demon Hunter. But yeah, I think probably exploring other Demon Hunter archetypes is where we're going to go in the future. But you are certainly right in that it's an exciting time for the game in terms of where we're going to go with our 10th class.
Yeah, and maybe even just for you, Subtle, Quest Warlock gets some extra nice love, so it's going to be even more playable in the future. We'll have to find out. As I do enjoy the deck, I just think I'm either bad at it or the deck's just not quite as good as people think. So I'm going to go with the deck's just not quite as good as people think as the answer I want for that one. But we are just getting into the game. I believe the players are just making sure everything is ready. The admin's just making sure everything's up to scratch so we can make sure we finish out this series in the right way. But again, I will just reiterate, if Casie wins, he is safe in this Division B. And Sol, you correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
You are, in fact, correct, yes. This is essentially a winning into top 4 for both of these players to be avoiding all of the shenanigans completely. They will join... The winner of this series will join the other players on a 4-win record, which at this point I think is where Division B is capped out, with Viper picking up some losses towards the end, RDU finishing on that record as well. So one of these players who both currently sit at 3 wins can finish on 4 and just pull them out of the equation whatsoever. But I think importantly now, while we have a little bit of time, it's worth exploring the idea that based on the way the opening 2 matches have gone, where both of the players in peril picked up wins, that then makes the loser of this actually get dragged back down into the automatic relegation tussle. They are now no longer safe from that as well, based on the way those results have gone. So Europe, as always, is doing its best to give us the most complicated tiebreaker scenarios that we can possibly have going into the final day, because this is just what we do, Raven. You might not be used to it, but this is my 3rd time through now dealing with the most complicated tiebreaker shenanigans out of all 3 regions.
Right, and I think that'll really hit home once we get into the end of the day, because this is perfect timing, actually. This is what I wanted to talk about. Look at Division B, and yet there's obviously just still a few more matches to be played out, but look how close it is. So many players on 3 wins or 4 wins, and then obviously Kolento at the bottom there on 2. But still, it's so close. And you just see the caliber of the players over the course of the weeks of round robin. On top of that, of course, the 3 weeks of Swiss we played right at the start of the season. But still, just incredible that it comes down to this. Unlike some of the other regions, or some of the even unlike Division A, where we see Falcane and Silvername on 2 and 5, Huntrace at the moment on only 2 wins. There's a bit more separation there, with Ball Control and Yala at the top achieving 5 wins. But in Division B, it's just a tussle, isn't it? All the way through the middle there, from almost just the bottom all the way to the top.
It is, yeah, and you can kind of see now with the graphical support a little bit better what I was talking about. Casie and Zhym both at a 3 and 3 record, which means one of them gets to go to 4, and they're the only players still capable of going to 4, which means whoever does win is going to sit in that top 4 alongside the other players. From that point onwards, Tice, Pavel, Kolento, the loser of this series, are all going to be in a pretty much 4-way tussle, although I believe Tice is now safe from direct relegation himself, although he is going to have to play out that relegation bracket.
Yep, it's all going to get spicy, not only just for the end of the day where we work out who are the auto-relegations, but there is another week of Hearthstone for the playoffs, the play-in, and the relegation bracket as well. So there's still tons of high-impact Hearthstone coming up next week. But for now, we are just going to go to a quick break. I think the players are just double-checking a few things to make sure everyone's good and ready to go for this next game. So we'll go to a quick break, and we'll be right back after this.
Mm. これってハースストーンに乗りたいって意味でいいのか
Okay, let me think. 노자리요. 긴 비행 중에 체력이 딸려도 그 생명력 잘 채워줄 것 같아가지고.
我应该会选那个死亡之翼吧，因为我觉得它那个动画特效特别酷，因为它骑上来应该也蛮酷的。
I'll choose. That's
ハースストーンのカードに乗るとしたらデスウィングに乗りたいですね。
デスウィン乗ったことありましたけど。
I want to ride Isra because I think his human form is really beautiful.
Cool.
Alexstrasza 是红龙。为什么？因为我只有想到这一条龙啊。Rich Alexstrasza 两个吗 ？Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
We are back. Sorry for the slight delay there, just between this game, but we are just getting ready to go into the next one. Casie, though, just as we quickly review, is winning 2-0 versus Zhym, and one more win is going to be fantastic for him, as it does leave him safe. Whereas Zhym, on the other hand, really needs to fight back. Pretty much every player you see today does need to win to create some level of safety or a chance at getting out of the danger zone for them.
Yeah, there is really... This is the most direct head-to-head, straight-up, just everything on the line matchup between that we're seeing today. I think everything else is a little bit one-sided, where one player is fighting for survival, one player is vying for safety. This is the matchup where it's just straight-up, head-to-head, both players in exactly the same position. It's weird to see like such a direct tie between two players. Because obviously they're both 3-3. Their tiebreaker 1 is 0 against each other, because obviously tiebreaker 1 is head-to-head and they haven't played each other yet, so they're just tied on tiebreaker 1. And their tiebreaker 2s are incredibly level as well. So this really is just straight up a, winner goes through to the play-ins for the playoffs, and the loser, as I mentioned before the break, can actually now find themselves in real trouble, in direct relegation trouble, based on the way that the first two matches have played out, which wasn't even necessarily a realistic possibility at the start of the day. These players might have felt like it was a pretty binary situation between relegation bracket or the play into the playoffs, but now they've got the grim specter of relegation directly just looming right over their shoulder in this matchup.
Yeah, and also one of the strange things or implications we might end up seeing, but we'll have to really dig deep and dive into that later, is because these two players, as you said, are so like just directly facing each other of where they are in the bracket and everything, and tiebreakers is, well, the loser's tiebreaker kind of gets better because the opponent beat them, right? So yes. It's super weird to explain, but anyway, it means that the tiebreakers kind of alter as well, even after the game or match is over, and it might have some implications later on. But again, we'll dig into that much more as we stride towards the end of the day here in the European Grandmasters.
I promise you, Raven, 99% of the times anyone who's got tiebreaker calculations wrong over the last 3 GM seasons, that's the thing that they've missed, which is when a player loses directly to another player, that player then also gains +1 in their tiebreaker too for like some nonsense. It's ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah, it's very, very strange. But let's go into it again. Sorry for the slight delay. It's just been one of those days, unfortunately. But we are going into it. Casie 2-0 up versus Zhym. Casie having his Hunter left over, and Zhym going to queue his Demon Hunter once again.
So just this Hunter left to win with now. Battle Fiend does come down on curve here for Zhym on the play. Huge start for him. We actually do see a lot of players here diverting and going Blazing Battle Mage first, but I think with the Umberwing curve, you are incentivized to be dropping the Battle Fiend first, and in response to that, Casey's going to decide to hold on to his Dwarven Sharpshooter. He would have loved to get that down ahead of the play if the 1-drop was missed from Zhym, but it's not exactly something you can just play out into the Battle Fiend after the fact. He's really going to want to hold back on it and react to the board state with it on turn 3 potentially.
Yeah, and I would say as well, there is some thought pattern of, say, if there was a Desert Spear in hand for Casie, he could have played his 1-drop out, because then it's likely that it takes a damage onto the Battle Fiend and then makes further trades with a Desert Spear a little bit more appealing. But for now, yeah, not the case. He does have Unleash the Hounds, though, which would help.
Yeah, Unleash the Hounds is a pretty big draw here as well, but I like the Frozen Shadow Weaver curve because that now over-contests the board, and these minions are not going to grow here because of the threat, the inability to attack from Zhym. Also plays around Satyr Overseer on curve, which is very nice as well. See Zhym top decking that.
Yep, this Unleash the Hounds, though, going to help do some work, although unfortunately for Casie, the Shadow Weaver going to add a ton more health on the board as well.
It is to the point where we could just see Dwarven Sharpshooter come down here instead.
I mean, it has to be answered, honestly. Dwarven Sharpshooter is so good against Demon Hunter, not only because it has 3 health, but also just sniping off almost every minion they play is incredibly strong.
Casie does just take the full clear here, but I mean, well, the full clear of everything he could at least. but it does just give Zhym a complete full turn of development, and he has plenty of options for strong development. That Beaming Psychic that he just drew is going to help him out enormously.
Demons.
Protected Satyr
I think
Overseer from the Dwarven Sharpshooter, from Corrosive Breath.
And I think it's very likely we see Casie hold on to this Fairy Dragon to get a guaranteed Rot Nest Drake in the near future, as that's a really good card too to snap back some of the closer board states.
Yeah, I don't know how much impact Rot Nest Drake is going to end up having against this board state that's just going to get wider and wider from Zhym.
Hey, I got you, friend.
We're with you.
Chooses to create the value trade with the Beaming Psychic instead, which is very reasonable, I guess, especially after you've just seen Unleash the Hounds come down as well.
Nothing but a bunch of big bears.
Weapon changes this a lot, actually. This 1-3 becomes kind of strangely strong in this point because it requires either the hero power plus the 2-2, the 2-2 and the 1-2 going into it, or it just farms the Shadow Weaver. Either way, it's going to have to be answered by Zhym in some respect.
Yeah, it's already reaching the point, though, where it looks like Casey's going to need to draw his Zephyrus to find a way out of this. The board state otherwise is just getting way too out of control.
Right.
In fact, I think it has to just be Zephyrus Lightning Storm as early as now. Don't think Casie has another turn to spend.
Yep, Rot Nest did get the good one, though. It's not going to be enough, but keeps him alive for now as he's one off, I believe.
Yep. 9 coming through with the addition of Warglaives. I can't imagine any other world than that 9 being pushed. I guess you could trade the 1-1, kill the minion, still push the 4 to face.
I think there's no real punish either way, right? Nothing can really give this taunt or lifesteal or anything like that, so...
Right.
Maybe that's just as good an argument to do it, because why not? It doesn't punish you. It means that Zhym gets a clear board. I guess Zephyrus heal he'd have to consider as well.
Well fought.
Yeah, this is just done and dusted, whichever way you look at it, because even if he went Animal Companion into Misha or Huffer, along with that Bone Shiver, the 2 attacks of the weapon leave the minions able to attack, and that is going to be the game. An extremely quick one over, not necessarily because either player was playing quick, but just because someone died very quickly overall. So
yes.
Demon Hunter getting a win there. But again, that is generally a tough matchup for the Hunter. I think you need things to go either very well for you, or you just need the Demon Hunter to just go a little bit slower. But there's Zhym just having the strong curve, and maybe in a roundabout way, the Sharpshooter, if we were to rewind time, just could have come down on turn 1. It didn't end up getting too much value, and maybe just soaking some damage was worth it because Casey's curve was smooth whilst doing that.
Yeah, I mean, with the Unleash the Hounds draw that came later, like, I guess the softening up of the Battle Mage for 1 damage by trading into the Sharpshooter would have had an impact, but the Unleash the Hounds wasn't in hand at the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fully on side with the decision to hold on to it there in that position.
Well, now we are going to go straight into Hunter versus Quest Warlock. A matchup I'm excited to see more of, as I want to see if I can beat Sol in this one, honestly. So, makes it worthwhile for me.
Wait, beat me in the matchup or beat me in the argument as to how the matchup is?
Well, I've already beat you in the matchup a lot of times in
like,
testing,
you
so I'm on to
can
phase
beat me
2
in the
now,
matchup.
Sol.
Yeah.
I've beat you in play, and now I'm going to beat you in theory as well.
Gotcha, okay. This is the kind of hand that looks like it can get some work done for Zhym, though. I think Dark Skies is the most crucial card in the matchup, outside of the quest. I'm so surprised that I have to clarify that, but based on some of the play we've seen from Europe Grandmasters, I will reiterate the quest is important.
Yep.
In the shadows.
Yeah, immediately you can see the issue, right? Is just if you don't have Dark Skies already in this situation, you feel like you're taking way too much of a beating.
Oh, Zhym, really?
Yeah, I like it. I like the greed. He's still at full, technically, with the, Sense Demons giving him the additional healing. The most that can get added by a single minion here is 5 to the board, which makes an even 10 for the Dark Skies on the next turn. Actually, really respect the greed from Zhym. I think that's the right play.
Still scary. The Dark Skies does clear this up, but he did, I guess, because the card was exactly Sense. It means he could pretty regularly get some heal there. Bit of a shutdown there for Casie, but he has piled some damage on, and now, with at least what we can see, the two Broodmothers in hand, some of the healing is dramatically reduced without there being a plot twist.
Correct, yeah. It does mean, though, that Zhym can now play for tempo on board as Coin Abyssal here.
Job's done.
Curious about Casey's play on the previous turn because Dragonbane is an absolute beating in this matchup. I think he is one of the most powerful cards on the Hunter's side. And Zhym did still have a kept card there. Dark Skies was the card he kept in his opener. It was there for Casie to see if he was paying attention with the mulligan. I think Dark Skies is card number 1 that you would keep in the matchup. But Casie just chose to run the risk. And now all of a sudden, this is looking very, very good for Zhym.
Yeah, definitely looking rough. One of the benefits is one of the ways that, or a lot of the ways Warlock clears a board is with double-sided removal, if that makes sense. Like the Netherwing, the Dark Skies, and so on, which means that it has reduced some of the health down on this Abyssal.
Whatever the action is.
Good old Dino Trader Bran.
It's okay though, the backup Negron slam to cover the difference.
Yeah, it's a couple of turns away just yet though, and there is another huge taunt where that last one came from. And now the plot twist as well for the quest completion. Casie giving out the salty chuckle in this position. So I think he knows this is the one that he did really have to bank on. Although Zephyrus Shadow Word Horror is huge here.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Yeah, pretty nice. He can even just use the brand to farm the 2/2.
Or Shadow Word Ruin, sorry. Why'd I call it horror?
I was thinking horror. Don't think that sounded weird.
It doesn't seem that good, no.
Yeah, gotta kill that 2/2. I was gonna say, Casie can go aggressive with the brand, but there is a certain level of fear of you can just be dead sometimes. But now we are going to see the insane double Moag Artificer and the Nether Breath here.
So Casie all the way back to square one, but he has at least stabilized to the point where he himself is not immediately dying, which is at least progress from where he was a couple of turns ago.
And he does get to kill off one of these Moags with that Zigzag. The only problem now is he's not in the comfortable position of having like Alexstrasza, Bran, Siamat, and the Night Grand Slam.
Right.
So I feel like normally at this point against Warlock, you really want the 2 waves of huge threats because of Calidan, because of Twisted Nether, because of maybe not this early, but because of the potential Zephyrus clear as well.
It's like he got his Zephyrus back unactivated.
Oh, you plot twist the Nether away. That never mind. I was gonna say that could have been a little bit spicy.
It could. It does just complete quest right now. Wow, with the Questing Explorer as well. That's pretty insane. Questing Explorer for card number 20 into the 0-cost tap.
Smooth.
He was planning to go tap into 0-cost tap at the end. But Questing Explorer off the top got it done perfectly.
Okay, well there's a CMAT, that's something, but there is Calidan as well to answer it if Zhym doesn't plot twist himself. And it has pushed 9.
What was this order?
Dunno. Weird.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've got nothing for you there, mate.
Fair enough.
Okay, well, at least Casey's doing a job here of putting on waves of threats. Zhym does run out of these, and I like that actually playing 2 minions there instead of the Tiamat does help a little bit versus Calidan.
Yeah.
Oh, doesn't he want to dump some of this hand first? Oh! Okay.
He can Mally
Coil the
Rain of
5/5?
Fire plot. He can Mally Rain of Fire plot twist go for lethal if he wants to. I wouldn't particularly advise
Okay.
it. Wow, he is gonna do it. Okay.
Oh!
Putting himself down to 10 with this play. I guess he does still have both Broodmothers in his deck, so even if he whiffs, it's not the end of the world. But he now has the Soulfire out for immediate lethal. There is the Broodmother for security. There is the Soulfire for lethal.
Okay,
Very nicely
wow.
done from Zhym in the end.
Wow, okay. That was a very smooth Warlock game there, wasn't it, from Zhym? I feel like that was just the ABC plan in action there. Just get the life taps, have the Dark Skies available, have the double Moag Nether Breath available as well, because he did not only get the Dark Skies on the initial threats, but he did get that double Moag massive 16 heal, which you really want versus the highly aggressive decks, and had enough juice to keep on trucking there towards the end. So a really smooth game there from Zhym, and he played that fast as well. A couple of weird moments with the tap second after the Nether was a bit strange, but the base plan was executed very well.
It does seem he's back rocking and rolling at Casie speed right now, but again, I think one of the turns that probably Casie thought about the most is the one that I have the most questions over, which was the Dragonbane coming down on curve to make the 10 total health against the kept card from Zhym as well. I think that's the really important factor, is that there's the kept card in hand, which sure, it can be multiple things. It can be plot twist, it can be Nether Breath. Some people would keep Moag in the matchup, but Dark Skies is keep number 1 for me against Hunter. And he also just had the option to, I believe, just play Scale Rider there in that position, just to add, to hedge his bets, essentially, make a big enough board that it's still monstrously threatening. But I think, there was, of course, still the threat of Coin Netherwing, which was the other thing that he had to be scared of, which is, I think, what his play played around. By adding the 5 health minion to the board, it then had to be exactly Dark Skies instead of just Coin Netherwing being able to blow out his board state. So certainly pluses and minuses in either column, but I think Dragonbane is a really, really core card for the matchup.
Yeah, it's really tough though, right? Because the second they don't have it, like it's so much damage. Like Casie almost wins if he just doesn't have the Dark Skies there. So really tough overall, but we can talk about that a little bit more later. Let's get into the final game of this series. Insanely important for both of these players to try and grab a win here, and Casey's off to the good start. The coin into Felmore.
Coin Felmore Fairy Dragon as well. Like, that is a monster start for Casie in this matchup. To the point where Zhym just eagles in response.
And a lot of the time in a lot of matchups, I would have already played Zephyrus like backstab here, right? But this matchup, I have harped on about it all the time. The difference between them glow flying you and not is insane in this matchup. It is in game winning for the Druid, but there's a world in which Casie just has an answer to the Glowfly, which Hunter doesn't really normally have. So the fact that he has the Zephyrus in hand, and he had a playable 2-drop anyway, means that I do agree with this. Just get that out, even though it does just die to the Eagle. Save Zephyrus for the answer to a Glowfly turn. And if there's no Glowfly turn, then great, you've got Zephyrus to just kill him.
That is an incredible wild growth from Zhym, and a brutal wild growth for Casie, though. Because now, as you mentioned, Glowfly Swarm is in full effect on Zhym's side of the board, and it comes down before any possible Zephyrus answer cleanly is possible.
The good thing is, though, we can kill 2 of them right now, and there's only 5.
Yep.
So this is one of the more manageable ones because of just how big Casey's minions are.
Ooh, Scale Rider off the top.
Massive.
I was going to have a serious talk about Zephyrus Cleave then if I had to, but no, I think the Scale Rider off the top makes things
more serious
nice.
than yesterday's Cleave? Why would you want to cleave this board?
Yeah.
And at this point, with the Zephyrus, I really do like the non-trade. Just kill off 1 to make sure things don't go too crazy. And there's still Zephyrus for Casie, and still a lot of health and threats for him to pile through here. Does have Soul, though, which means he can take the 2 big threats off the board and basically stick the same board.
Yes. Difference
good
now
Zhym's
is
gonna get.
that he is walking into a potential Zephyrus Lightning Storm, but Zephyrus Lightning Storm looks miserable with Casie's current hand.
Your wish is my suggestion.
So in that case, do you just take SI instead? No? Casie disagrees. He's going to trust his deck to give him something to do next turn. Right now, it's nothing. Just an overgrowth and chill turn for Zhym right now. Remove some of the
also
power
like
from the board.
the weird level of hand reading where because Glowfly got played, he knows how many spells were in hand at that point in the game. So how likely is it that Zhym has a Mount Seller with only like 2 draws or so? Which would have been the problem. Ah, wow. Wow. I mean, he has a lot of damage, though. He has a lot of damage. Bran
He
next
does.
turn, Unleash, which directly counters a lot of the stuff Zhym does.
Such an enormous draw, though. Zhym just needed something to do that turn off the Rising Winds draw. Be it a Mount Seller, be it the Glowfly. He's had to get something. See him out.
Looks like it. He can see him at, then potentially Bran or Unleash, but then if he gets to 9, he does have the Varanus Unleash combo,
Exactly,
if required. I do think this is correct here, but it's so much damage for Zhym. And now
This
the
is just
Bogbeam
Druid
gonna clean
things
this up.
again. Like, there's so few power cards in the deck. You have to hit them or your deck just does absolutely nothing. Which is what we see Zhym doing now, just power cycling to
Oh,
try
he
and
gets more
find
draws.
answers. It is going to be a pass this turn, it looks like. Unless he finds his second Iron Bark, he's going to get smoked by this Dino Tamer Bran.
And then suddenly Unleash, huge problem. 1 Iron Bark, as you mentioned, already been played now.
Yep.
So there's not that many taunts left. Only 9 power, 9 damage, sorry, being put forward because of the trade. So close, it's literally coming down to the wire here. And I think it just has to be Dino Tamer Bran go.
I agree. It's 9
Nothing
plus
else
8.
does the job.
9 plus 8 coming back the other way.
You'll find me wherever the action is.
And also,
Savage Roar.
And also, there is Varanus Unleash as the ultimate backup plan. There's Fungal Fortunes, but that means if he plays it, he can't. Like, there's no Mount Seller out because it'll discard the Mount Seller. Overflow, that's just not going to do it.
Zhym having to take this down before he overflows. Again, he's getting so deep in his deck now that he's going to be pushing Fatigue and he's going to need the turn to be able to fill his turn back up with the Dragons again. To even avoid being able to take additional Fatigue damage. Now, Sera's not just his outright last card, which is not unlikely at this point.
Oh, there's Savage Roar. There's an Iron Bark.
Time waits for no one.
Life and
So
hope
now,
of Will
because
Thor.
Casie doesn't need the Unleash Varanus because it's not good, he can now back... Wait a minute. That can't be good, right? He doesn't need cards, he doesn't want to heal Zhym. That's just actively bad. Wait, Fatigue! Oh, no, it doesn't go that way. What am I on about? I'm getting too excited.
Okay, Raven, you and Overflow have some issues, okay?
I know, yeah, I know. I've been playing Druid recently as well, that's why I'm hyped on it.
I supply only the
So here's the thing,
Okay.
Mount Seller goes big and wide, he creates a huge taunt with the Mount Seller, but then there's just Varanus Unleashed to come back the
Yep.
other way. This is what Casie has been waiting for multiple turns.
It is
Either
just
of these big boys stick.
It's just the break in case of emergency combo for Hunter is the
Yep.
Varanus Unleash because it just deals with everything.
Yep.
And that's double trade there, but the 5/6 is going to live. And also, with only one taunt, it's not like Casie needs to trade away this whole into a board of taunts, right?
Right.
It's just one dog he needs to kill through this Mount Seller.
Job's done.
And that is going to get the job done. Varanus, the nods from Casie, unleash. Job done, game over. Casie takes the victory in an insanely close series, coming down to the wire between him and Zhym. But with the help of the Unleash, with the help of the Varanus, and a little bit of help from the Alexstrasza's friends as well, that is going to be the series. And look at Zhym, crushed by that loss, and understandably so. But Casie had a extremely rough start to the Grandmasters round robin, and he had some real problems. He tweeted about his stress levels, tweeted about everything he was dealing with, but he has managed to overcome it, and especially the past few weeks, got those wins in the bag there, got the victories, and really set himself up for the best of outcomes here. And he managed his win today, so congratulations to him.
Yeah, I think out of all the players, Casey's probably the one who's had the biggest emotional roller coaster with the way this season's gone. Terrible start to obviously he ended up in Division B, which is a terrible start to begin with, and then terrible start to round robin as well. He was tweeting like, you know, all these doubts and so on that you were talking about. Then suddenly it looked like it was all coming together. He was just jamming and vibing on stream and winning whole series of Hearthstone in like 20 minutes, as we know and love Casie to do.
Yep.
But then after that point, again, as it came towards the end, you know, we talk about how he was facing again the relegation bracket, facing even automatic relegation in this position. He had to watch Viper, you know, roping out and missing cards on the previous on yesterday's broadcast, and then miss that opportunity to guarantee his safety in that way, thanks to the win he already had over Viper. Left it all down in his opening hands, and then that series was kind of a reverse microcosm of his whole round robin, where he went off to a flying start, but then suddenly it all turned back against him, with Zhym absolutely crushing in the middle of the series, and it was only just then by the skin of his teeth, with the last push that he had left with the Varanus Unleashed, that he was able to get over the finishing line.
Yeah, pretty crazy series overall, but that we are by no means done, as we have 2 more left to go. But before we get into match number 4 for you, we are going to go to a break while we set the players up and get them ready for some more Hearthstone. So don't go anywhere, and we'll be back with some more Grandmasters.